Afenyo Markin has spoken on behalf of Ofori Atta. He has also defended Ofori Atta on some incidents or some things that happened in Ofori Atta's home. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ofori Atta's home was raided by some people in military wears. I don't know if they are the military, truly, or they are not the military, but they were wearing military outfit. Now, according to Afenyo Markin, these people were led by Richard Jakpa, Richard Jakpa, or Richard Jakpa. Yes, he was led by Richard Jakpa. Now, according to Afenyo Markin, he said that is infringing on human rights because everybody has the right to privacy, and you cannot just barge into someone's home and invade their privacy, not knowing. You can't just barge into someone, which I believe that, well, it's true.
No. Military men led by Mr. Richard Jakpa unlawfully entered the premises of Mr. Ofori Atta, searched his rooms.
Honorable Minority Leader, the unlawful entry is by your own determination.
Mr. Speaker, you know that by virtue of where we sit, we are able to do some background check before we come here. I wouldn't want to mention names, but Mr. Speaker, when inquiry was made, Mr. Speaker, when inquiry was made, it was obvious, and I stated for emphasis that those officials from the state did not have any warrant.
You need a warrant before you can enter somebody's house.
The purported raid on Mr. Ofori Atta's residence was staged, or at best, an imposter action in an attempt to court disfavor for the OSP and to derail the investigation. You know us very well. The OSP is never deterred by such occurrences, and the investigations will continue as by law prescribed.
So Afenyo Markin in Parliament today has made his stance and has made it clear to people of Parliament that today is of Ofori Atta, we shouldn't stand up and condemn him because Ofori Atta has also helped in the development of the country as well. This and a lot of things that Afenyo Markin said about Ofori Atta in Parliament. Take a listen.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to make my comments on this matter. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ofori Atta, a former Minister of Finance and a former presidential envoy, has contributed to nation building. Mr. Speaker, in 2021, when His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo nominated him for the Finance Ministry portfolio, this House had to wait because he indicated he was unwell and seeking for medical treatment outside. Mr. Speaker, in fact, when he even came, he was the only minister that his vetting took 2 days. And in between, this House indulged him to enable him take some break, to enable him proceed with his vetting. Eventually, he left government as a cabinet minister. And, Mr. Speaker, for the records, on the 2nd of January 2025, he wrote to the then Chief of Staff that he needed to travel to Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, USA, for some medical procedure. Mr. Speaker, after President Mahama had taken office, he again wrote to the current Chief of Staff in a letter dated the 22nd of January 2025, indicating that he would again be absent from Ghana for the same purpose. Mr. Speaker, in fact, in the said letter to the Chief of Staff, he attached a letter from the hospital that he was seeking treatment. Mr. Speaker, indeed, the OSP wrote to him on the 24th of January. In fact, this is the first letter that he received from the OSP. Mr. Speaker, in the said letter, Mr. Ofori Atta instructed his lawyers to respond to let the OSP know that indeed he was out of the jurisdiction seeking medical treatment. Mr. Speaker, what happened yesterday by state security operatives must be condemned by all of us. Honorable John Jinapor has narrated his own ordeal, but the records of this House will confirm that when that happened, Right Honorable Speaker Okwe condemned that act. If indeed something had happened yesterday, it does not mean that we should continue today. Mr. Speaker, I've heard human rights activists, respected lawyers for that matter, quote Article 18 of the Constitution to say that that is not applicable in this case. Mr. Speaker, I beg to submit that that was a wrong appreciation of the law. Military men led by Mr. Richard Jakpa unlawfully entered the premises of Mr. Ofori Atta, searched his rooms.
Honorable Minority Leader, the unlawful entry is by your own determination.
Mr. Speaker, you know that by virtue of where we sit, we are able to do some background check before we come here. I wouldn't want to mention names, but Mr. Speaker, when inquiry was made, Mr. Speaker, when inquiry was made, it was obvious, and I stated for emphasis that those officials from the state did not have any warrant. Mr. Speaker, we should not encourage such an approach. We should not. Our democracy is still young. Today, it is Ofori Atta. Tomorrow, it will be another person. Some of our colleagues should not forget that only yesterday, it took the intervention of certain prominent members of our side to ensure that they were not mistreated. We will not mention names. They know. So these should be the voices of reason on this occasion. Some members worked in the night to ensure that people, members of the political class who are members of this House, were not mistreated. Mr. Speaker, let me remind colleagues, today, if you are praising the OSP, let's not forget that not too long ago, we had some of our members at the receiving end by the OSP. Don't let us also forget that even the president himself became a subject matter of OSP investigation. And he was not happy with certain words used by the OSP against him. So don't let us celebrate. Don't let us celebrate because today it is Ofori Atta. Mr. Speaker, all manner of things are being said that Ken has done this, has done that, has done that. I listened to my colleague from Keta, and I listened to my respected colleague from Bogatanga Central, enumerating what to him amount to offenses. And they also argued again that the man has not been tried, therefore there cannot be any human rights abuse. Mr. Speaker, if you invade somebody's home and raid his home, Article 18 of the Constitution protect that person, except when you are doing so lawfully. On this occasion, there was no such law There was no such law supporting their actions. So they shouldn't be here happy with it. These 4 years will soon come. No, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, I think the honorable member's order, that response was in respect of the allegation of breach of natural justice. And you and I are very much aware that natural justice is in two main ways: the Odi Atram pattern and Nemo Judas in Council. But actually not in respect of the Constitution. The statement states there was a breach of natural justice.
Mr. Speaker, the contention here is that the man's home was raided by state security operatives, rather unlawfully. And I dare contend that that conduct was unconstitutional. That is my respectful submission, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have done a lot of follow-ups on this matter, and I regret to say that we are not sending the right signal to our electorate. Mr. Speaker, the man has put the state on notice of his absence from the jurisdiction. He has made available his medical records coming from a respected medical facility. Mr. Speaker, today, I repeat, if our friends think that it is another person, so it is okay, and they are describing Ofori Atta in all manner of forms, let me remind them that none can ever rule this country with perfection. The man, Mr. Speaker, at the risk of being repetitive, Honorable Stephen Amwa was clear in his language of submission that indeed the successful implementation of the free SHS was led by Ofori Atta as a finance minister. He made sure that he rolled out all important policy of government. Mr. Speaker, if you have any issue, follow due process of law. It is not enough for national security to raid his home. It is not enough to carry armed military men to his residence to terrorize his children and by extension his neighbors. Mr. Speaker, we must, as a house, be united with one voice to condemn this act. Today is Ofori Atta. Next will be other appointees. Mr. Speaker, we must not allow this. Mr. Speaker, only yesterday we saw the Attorney General applying to the court with an application we call nolli prosequi in law, simply saying that he's discontinuing certain cases. That is within his right as an Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, what signal are we sending to the nation that, oh, if it is NDC and NDC is in power, it is right. If it is MPP and if it's MPP in power, it is right. Mr. Speaker, the political class of this country must rise above this. The political class of this country must rise above this. And I would conclude by saying that if indeed...
Hold it. Honorable member, will you... No, I mean you are looking back. It is you I'm talking to. You are looking back. It is you I'm talking to. Will you listen to the leader in silence? Why? Leader, continue.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Member for Keta talked about karma. And I agree with him. I've been reading a lot about karma. The wheels of karma indeed grind slowly, but with great surety. You have quoted it today. Enjoy it whilst it lasts. Mr. Speaker, today he says that we are reaping the fruits of a karmic effect of our actions. So it should be so. You have just come into government. You have a lot of projects you want to undertake. You'll be going to PPA. Ministers will be taking decisions. Some will be good, some will be bad. You will roll out policies for Ghanaians to benefit. Some will pay, some will not pay. You would engage the business community. So bear in mind that this karma you have just referred to, 4 years from today, we may. You can even call it 50 years. 50 years, 60 years. So let us solve the problem now. Let us encourage state security agencies with a mandate to investigate and prosecute to follow the law. Let's encourage them to follow the law. Honorable Nitiwu, in his submission, was being very emotional because just a week ago, he had to invite the leaders to intervene. Some and the clerk. Some people calling themselves state security operatives chased him, his car, a former defense minister. And when they saw the car papers, they now realized that whatever the information they had was wrong. A colonel had to come, and when he questioned them that who sent you, they could not mention. So when we give certain wrong signals, some of those people at the lowest level take advantage to harass people, and even senior members who give order, when they realize that it is wrong, they are unable to even own up. Honorable Nitiwu, a former defense minister, suffered this just a week ago. It took the intervention of leadership and the clerk to parliament to sanitize the situation. Is that what we want? Is that what we want? Mr. Lord Comey, his house was raided. They searched his house, took away all his cars, and after 3 days, they said, we are sorry. They brought the cars back. Is that how you want to govern the country? Mr. Speaker, I shall conclude by urging my colleagues to support this call in bringing sanity in the country, so that nobody will take advantage to unleash any violence on anybody. I rest my case. Thank you.